A very good afternoon and a very good day to all the champs. Let's get quickly started with Spring Framework Part 2. And what we have understood in Part 1 was a bit of dependency injection, and we tried to do getter and setter injection in the first part, right? Or in first two parts, right? Introduction was there, Part 1 was there, and now we're starting with Part 2. And we're also seeing the constructor injection, not the constructor injection. We'll be starting with the constructor injection today. For example, let's go back to beans. Now we all know that we have this triangle bean here, right? And it has getters and it has setters and many different things, right? So let me tell you how do you make that getter injection, or first we'll try and see that how do we apply dependency injection on constructor. For that, first thing is first, let's start making constructor. So I'll say public triangle. Right, so this means we are making a 0 parameter constructor. But does the constructor accept any parameters? Yes, we have to make sure that the constructor is accepting any parameter, right? And in our case, the parameter is type. So we will accept a string type. All right. As soon as the constructor injection is applied, you can see string type. Whenever you call this constructor, we know that we have to pass now one argument to the constructor, right? So once we call the one argument constructor, what this constructor will do, it will do nothing. You'll say this dot type, which is this type here, right, is equivalent to type. So now you are filling the parameter, or the member variable is getting filled with constructor injection. You're applying dependency over constructor injection now, right? And let me go back to our JSP, which is index.jsp. And here we are doing each and everything. And this is where we are asking application context that please give me an instance of this triangle class, and I'll delete everything. And this thing is so far understood, right? Creating an object of application context with the file that we have just made, Spring configuration file, and asking for the instance of triangle, which is an object, and typecasting it back to the appropriate type, which is a triangle. So we say triangle T. Right, so now let me apply. So this was the property injection. We were applying the setter injection here. Now let us apply constructor injection. Okay. Let me delete this equilateral triangle and let me apply constructor injection right here. Right, so this is the class, and I'm going to call directly constructor. Now you can see I'm going to call constructor, right, and I am going to pass one argument to that constructor. Now you can see that constructor takes the reference and it takes the value, and value is going to be equilateral triangle. Now, right, so now the constructor injection is applied. You can see the constructor is accepting one parameter here. That parameter goes to the type, right, and now we can access that and see whether the constructor injection is successful or not. So I say triangle T is equivalent to context.getBean triangle, and I will directly say out.print, right, that is T.getType. So without wasting much of your time, let us do T.getType, and you can see equilateral, right? And now if I go and supply another argument, so I'll say equilateral triangle. Now we are applying equilateral triangle, and let us see whether equilateral triangle is drawn. Yeah, equilateral triangle. Or we can manipulate it here in the triangle class. I'll say this dot type is equivalent to the type supplied as an argument to the constructor, right? And I'll say plus DRAWN, drawn. Or we can directly say, just a moment, where is draw? We have to call a draw method, right? So let me call draw method directly. So we'll say dot get triangle, not can but draw. So once I call draw, you can say equilateral triangle drawn, right? So this is basically what I intended to be. Okay, equilateral triangle drawn. So why are we getting 2 times triangle? Because we are applying here also. Now we'll have to apply only the name of the triangle, and you can say equilateral triangle drawn. So what we had seen previously was applying dependency injection to these properties which are getters, right? And we have seen now we're applying injection to constructor, and we can apply many different things, not only constructor arguments. So for example, if we are having two constructors, let's say about, right? Let me tell you about that triangle. And let us say we have now many different properties of triangle. Triangle will not have only one property, and that is type. So far we have only one property, which is type. Let me keep all the properties in line so that we don't confuse ourselves. So now this is the property, and getters and setters here. Getters and setters, and here is the 0 parameter constructor. Alright, so this is what we can even have. Now let me go with another parameter. So I can say private int, I can go with let's say height. Now we have two parameters. One is the type of the triangle, another is the height of the triangle. Let me quickly go and create getters and setters for height. So I'll say getters and setters for this height right here. So now height is also having getters and setters, type is also having getters and setters. The only difference is that type is also having a 0 parameter constructor which takes one argument, right, and that argument is basically supplied to the type. So this is understood so far. Now what if I want to, let's say it does not have any setter. Okay, it does not have any setter, right? So let me delete. Okay, get height is there, and let me not have set height. Okay, so we don't have set height here. Fine. Okay, now we don't have set height. Alright, so now we'll do it using the constructor. Now let us say about the constructor is accepting two parameters, right? String type, right, and int height. Right? How do you supply two parameters to a single constructor? Now you can see here that you do not have value is already supplied. You cannot use value twice. So if I use VAL, right, you can see value is not coming. But even if I try to use value is equal to 15 or 13, yet it is going to throw an exception right here. You can see it's throwing an exception that it already has a value. Why are you asking for value, or why are you supplying two parameters, right, when value is already supplied? Now sorry, to cope up with that, right, in order to proceed, what we are going to do, because we know that now our class, which is beans.triangle, has a constructor taking two parameters. One parameter is height, right, and another is name, which is this equilateral. Now second parameter I can directly supply here height, which is 20. Now you can see we'll not have any exception at all. So let me refresh. Yeah, equilateral triangle drawn. So now we can get the height as well. If you want to get the height, you can get height as well, and you can print that height here in the index.jsp. I'll say plus of, right, or we can say equilateral triangle drawn of HEIGST height, and I can directly say t dot get height. Now we can get both the properties of t dot get height. Okay, we have not supplied it here. We are taking two parameters, string type and int height. So I'll say this dot height is equal to height. Right, so now what happens, right, you can see there are two parameters which are being passed to the triangle constructor. First one is string, so we are passing string, which is type of triangle, right, in our case equilateral triangle, and second one is height, which is integer, and we are passing that too here in height, and then we are saying this dot triangle and height is filled. Now we are filling the parameters right here, and then now let's refresh and see whether it works fine. Alright, so now you can see equilateral triangle drawn of height 20. Just need to make it more user friendly. Alright, so this way you can make it more user friendly. Fine, so now let me try again. Equilateral triangle drawn of height 20. So this is how we apply constructor injection. Alright, but now we have many cases. For example, now what if I want to supply only one parameter? right? For example, we have two constructors. One is taking, let me show you an example here. Now this is only one constructor. A single constructor is taking two values, right? So far this is understood. Now what if I have two constructors? For example, one constructor is taking type and another is taking height, right? So let me delete it and let me have it HEIGHT, right? And it is going to be int height, right? So now we have two triangles. We are doing two constructors. Is constructor overloading here, right? Now then, because previously what we did, we knew that the first parameter is string, we supplied string, and now we knew earlier that the second parameter is integer, we supplied integer. So now which constructor do you call? Both are taking one parameter, right? Now which constructor do you call? Now if you want to apply constructor injection, now if I say I am doing this, now let us see what happens. Constructor argument dot value 20 is going to throw an exception, right? Because what are you supplying? Which constructor are you targeting? For example, I'll say right, ABC constructor is drawn. It is still going to create an exception for you, right? What is the name of the constructor? I can say unsatisfied dependency exception, error creating bean with name triangle, right? Why? Because you have two constructors right here, right? And you have to supply appropriate values to the constructors. Now you can say ABC triangle drawn of height 0. So now it has taken it as string, right? Now you can see even if I apply 20. Now if I apply 20, now let's give it 20. Now you can see 20 triangle drawn of height, but now I want this 20 to be taken as height, right? Now we have two triangles. You can see two constructors are here. I want this to be taken as height, right? But it is taken as name. Now for example, if I go and target the second constructor, right, and I target the second constructor, right here, now I can say that even I want to draw equilateral, 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 right? But there are two constructors right here. You have to understand it is going to throw the exception right here, that is, right, bean creation exception, right? Because you have two constructors now. Why are you targeting a single constructor? So for that, what I'll do right here, I'll pass only one value, right? And I will say here the type of the constructor is going to be int, all right? And you are supplying 30. Now you can clearly see that one constructor is of type. You know the basic definition of constructor overloading. Overloading means, right, same or similar names but different signature values, right? Or we can say different signatures. Now, what do you mean by different signatures? Different signatures, having different signatures mean that the parameters that this triangle is accepting, because both constructors are having same name. How do you distinguish or differentiate between them? Right, by only the signature. Signature means that both should not have int. If both are having hit, it's going to cause not an exception but a compile time error, right? For example, I'll show you this. Now you can see this has int. Now you can see both the signature of both is int, so it's going to cause a compile time error, not an exception right here, right? So that is why both are having different types. So now I'm targeting the constructor as that of type int will take value 30. Now if I fire this and I see, now you can see triangle drawn of height 20. It has automatically targeted the integer based constructor. So now what if I want to target, right, another constructor? Will I go to the similar method, right? And will I say type is equal to string? No, string is not the type. It is Java. If you remember core Java, it is java.lang.string. The type is java.lang.string and the value is let me type, oh, I just hate typing equilateral. Very hard to remember the spelling of equilateral triangle. EQU, right? ILATERAL. Pardon me if I misspell it or spell it wrong. Concentrate on Java rather than this. Now it's going to create an exception, right? Okay, I know this. You're calling both the constructors in a single parameter. So now what I do for that, I create two beans, number 1 and number 2. Is that so? Now let's see whether this works or not. Java-lang-string. No, it is still not working. Triangle is already defined because you'll have to create the reference. Now you can understand the problems that we may face. It's not always that easy to create this, right? It's always going to be a bit difficult to target which constructor are you targeting, or to target any specific constructor on the basis here. Alright, so constructor type, yeah, value is equilator, but the type is different here. For example, now if I delete it, alright, so you cannot create two instances of a class here inside this Spring.xml. Alright, so let me see. Equilateral triangle drawn of height 0. So this is best thing. And now if I have to supply height, so I will say constructor type int, right, value is equal to 30. So now you can even supply this to the triangle, but yeah, it is going to create an exception right here. So there are some limitations, and we will see with the time, right, how do we basically inject, or how do we basically inject multiple things, or inject using objects. So let me show you first object injection. So let me understand. Let me make sure that you guys understand it. So far, if you've understood constructor injection, you understood getters and setters injection, you understood dependency injection. Now what you are going to understand, you're going to understand object injection as well. For example, now let me go and make this quickly. So I'll say new. I'll go to beans. I'll say new Java class I am having. Let's call this as point, right? So this is point, and we have 2 points, as you all are aware of. There are always 2 points that we discuss, and we knew it right from the beginning when we started learning mathematics, perhaps. We have that private int x and private int y. X-axis and y-axis are 2 points that we have to consider right here. So let me indent them properly. Okay, fine. So now our job is to do nothing but to create getters and setters. Means we have to apply object injection now. Now the getters and setters are ready. Alright, so let me quickly go and create another class which is triangle. Triangle is already there, so let me not go and basically try and do something different here with this triangle class. Alright, so let me delete everything that we have inside this triangle. Alright, so now object injection will happen only when you have user defined type. So we have already created a class point. So I will say, for example, private type is point. Now you can see this point class is here, and let me call this point A, and then private type is point, and let me call this as point B. Alright, and let me copy this and paste it, and let me call this as point C. Now we have 3 points, right? Point A is of type point, right, which means point A itself can have 2 points x and y, and point B can have 2 points which is x and y, because the type of point A, B, C is point. So now if I say point C is equal to, let's say about ABC is equal to point A. What is in ABC? ABC will have 2 more things, dot x and ABC dot yy, because you can see the type of point right here is point. So point A is of type point. What does it mean? That means point A can have 2 values. One is x, another is y, right? So this is called as object injection that we are about to do. And let me create getters and setters quickly. Now we have two classes. Point is here with 2 points x and y, and we have a triangle class with all 3 points of type point, right, with getters and setters. Now if I call, for example, I'll just make you understand. Let me get rid of this. So now, for example, if I make an object of let's say about triangle. Now I say t dot, now you can see get point A. Now when I say get pointed, I don't have any problem, and you can say further, you can say get x, right? So this is how we have related both of them, because point A has two things, x and y. You can do, or you can do set point A, right? So you're setting point A, right? So what does it take, right? What does it take? You tell me. It has 2 points. It takes 2 points, right? So which is 2 parameters, one is x and one is y. So that's what we are going to achieve from this Spring.xml here, right? And we call this as object injection. We know that point is now an object, right, itself. So we'll have to take care of that, right? Let me create bean id is equal to triangle and class is equivalent to this. So now then we have created this triangle, so we don't have to worry about this triangle being right here. Okay. All right, so now we have this triangle, and triangle is going to have many different things, right? So let me create references first. So let me go with bean. First we have to create points, right? So I'll say bean id is equivalent to, let's call this as 0 point, right? So we have the first point as 0 point, and class is going to be, the class for this particular point is going to be beans dot point. Now you can see this here, beans dot point. All right, now let us create 2 points here. So it has property, we know that, getters and setters we already created. How many properties does point have? X and y. So we'll have to supply value. So I'll say property x is going to take value of 0. Okay, close it down, and let me handle another property here. What? Okay, let me go and handle another property here. Another property is going to be y, and let's say y is going to take a value of 0 again, for example, right? And now we'll target all, because we also have point A, point B, 4 points. 2 is going to be 3. So let's say we have 3 points, okay? 0 point, and let's say, let's call this as point 1, and let's call this as point 2, right? So we have point 1 and point 2. So now how many points are we? So we have initialized this bean as 0 point and supplied 0 0, and here let me supply minus 20 and 0, and let me supply here, let's call this as plus 20 and 0. So now we have filled all the points. Now what is going to happen when I call 0 point? 0 point dot x is going to have 0, 0 point dot y is having 0, right? And when I call point 1, x and y are going to have, x will have minus 20, y will have 20. And when I call point 2, how do you call point 2? You can directly call from index reference, right? Get bean and the name of the bean, right? X will have 20 and y will have only 0. So that's understood so far. Okay, and now let me create object injection here. Now I'll say, hey triangle, if I create an instance of this triangle which I have already created, I have asked the application context to kindly give me an instance of triangle, and it has as usual given me. Now I can say that, hey bean, I need you to do, because bean triangle has a property of type A. When I call A, how many things I have to supply? 2 things, x and y, right? Because point A is of type point. When it is of type point, point has x and y. Now I'll say triangle has a property which is known as point A, right? yeah, it has point A, and let me call all three properties right here. Right, so let me call 2 and 3. So now we have three properties: point A, point B, and point C. Now let us give reference to point A. Point A is going to take two values, x and y. So let me, instead of giving indirect, let me give direct reference to this, right? And let me say ref is equivalent to 0 point, right? Let me call this as well. Point B is going to take two values. Point C is going to take two values. Point 1 will go to point B, and point 2, right, which is here, will go to point 3, right? So now you can clearly see object injection applied. Triangle has three properties: point A, point B, and point C. But it is an object. Point A is of type object, point B is of type object, and point C is of type object, right? And these objects take values from somewhere, right? And those values are A, X, and Y, right? So we are supplying the reference of point A is 0 point. So now point A dot X 0, point A dot Y will contain 0, point 1, right, which is point B dot X minus 20 dot Y 20, and similarly point C dot X 20 and dot Y 0. So let me try and access them so that we'll be able to understand about the happenings inside. So now we'll have to target the draw method. Do we have draw method? Let me go public void, or let me call this as public string draw. So I'll return something to this. So I will say return, so something that you have to return to me. So that is going to be this something. So I'll say point A is equivalent to right, and I'll call the object plus, right? So I will say get point A, right, dot get X, whatever is supplied, right, and I will say plus, give it a bit of space or comma, and say plus, right? After giving comma, let me say plus here, and after giving comma and space, let me say point A is equivalent to this plus get point A dot get Y. So now point A gets X and Y both, right? So now let me concatenate this as well, right? So I'll just get rid of this semicolon and get rid of this semicolon. So I'll say point B is equal to get point P dot get X, get point B dot get Y. Point C is equal to get point C, right, dot get X, and get point C dot get X. So we are not setting, we are only getting them, because setter injection is already applied through Spring. Alright, so let me have it now. Okay, let's see. we are not doing out.println yet. So let me go ahead and say now only. Now see the amount of is out.println, right? So I'll say out.print, which is going to be t.draw. Now we call t.draw and see the rest. Point A 0, right? Point 0. Alright, point B is equal to minus 20. Now let me give a bit of space so that it is decorated and more user friendly. Alright, so let me give some spaces in here. Yeah, sure. Now point A is equal to 0, 0, point B is equal to minus 20 and 0, point C is equal to 20 and a 0. So this is where we are applying object injections as well, right? So it's as simple as anything. It's real fun, right? Because it's always going to be a real fun of working with such kind of, we can say, dependency injections, right? And we can even make sure that application context, and we're asking everything from application context. We're not doing anything on our own, right? So we're always application context driven, and we're not creating objects, and it is going to create a very good environment for the future development. And imagine, once you are developing complex applications, you need objects, and you want to supply some object values, and you have to go and open all the files and then see, and then you'll say at the end of the day, hey, now I have a problem. How do I link two objects? For example, I have a database table. A table has data is coming from one database table, and another database table is giving another piece of data. Let's say about it, you have two objects, and both objects have data from different tables. Now, how do you join them? You'll have to go and re-edit, or maybe recreate, or maybe create a new class, or maybe create a new class and some functions in order to fetch that data. But here it's very simple. You can apply object injections, go to Spring, and try and join both the objects, right? So it's very easy. It will not look easy now, but today and now your duty is not to understand completely what the future after 10 days, 15 days, or 20 days is going to be, right? How is Spring Boot going to operate and perform for us, right? So what are the tools that Spring Boot has for us at our disposal? No, your duty is to basically do your job day by day. Your main duty is to complete today's job, and then today complete all the job and do practice this, and tomorrow think about only today and complete what I teach you for today only, without even thinking for tomorrow, right? Yeah. But if you're not able to understand, I still remember that once I started learning Spring, it was the most complex thing for me as well. And Spring is supposed to be the most complex thing at the start, but once you are familiar and used to it, it is easier than anything, because it takes just 2 seconds to develop a web application, right? But to initially understand, we may require a bit of patience, and we may have to be consistent. We'll have to consistently check the lectures, download them, and maybe if necessary, go through the lectures twice, thrice, 4 times, so that you understand it completely. Once you're familiar, then there is no problem. We are going to work like a pro and get ahead and go ahead and develop good applications. And then you'll say, okay, sir, you were right. But it happens to everyone. Even I was a student, and once I started with Spring, it happened to me also. I found it very complicated, and at that moment in time, I thought, no, I'm not going to learn Spring, right? So that's not the way. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. The toughest things are the most easiest things, right? Why? Because it's the toughest things that we guys work more hard for, right? The moment we work more hard for toughest things, and that particular act of ours, that is the hard work, makes those or make all those things which tend to be let's say about a bit complex, but at the end you'll find them very easy. So for today's lecture, let me have a look at time. So it's still 32, so we are going to take a look at few more things, right? And we are going to see many different things, right? So far we understood, Pojo is already understood. Right. So Pojo, I suppose you have already understood it, okay? Pojo is already understood. Right, so we'll be starting with the dispatcher servlet now, because you'll have to take the understanding of dispatcher servlet. And to understand the dispatcher servlet, you'll have to complete practicing this. So I'll not be adding, or I'll not be putting too much of pressure on you guys. So you guys do it at your own convenience. A video of 40 minutes. Maybe we may from tomorrow go in between 45 to 50 minutes, because it's a non-stop video of 45 or 50 minutes. May require you to practice for 2-3 hours, right? So we'll be starting with the fresh thing tomorrow, and we'll see that how dispatcher servlet and application context does work, right? Tomorrow. Until then, see you. Do practice very hard, and let me know down in the comment section if I can help you, or you can directly message me, right? And for that, wish you all the best, and see you tomorrow. Bye bye. Take care.